Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Left Wing. I am TJ Whitehead, powers taken, not given. Joined as always by John Cooper of Counting Point Politics, and we are so happy to have the return of Natalie Benson Vega for at the third or fourth time. She's a glutton for punishment. Welcome back, Natalie. We appreciate it. Thanks.
I've lost track. I'm always happy to be here.
It's going good. We were just talking about Pennsylvania and everything going on there. So you and John are both on the ground there. Natalie, what do you think is what's the atmosphere like over there in the Keystone State? It's Keystone State, right? Isn't that Pennsylvania? I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look at you, TJ. You got it. It's tense. I don't know how things are where you're at, John, but I'm in the western side of the state and Pittsburgh region, and I can feel people's anxiety. I can feel the concern. There's been a lot of hostility. It's been really intense, especially as you move outside the city proper and you head more into the suburbs and more into sort of Trump land. It doesn't feel good, and nobody I've talked to feels good. So we're kind of in a rough spot right now. John, what are you feeling?
It doesn't feel good, and nobody I've talked to feels good.
I wrote that exact line down right now.
I'm just keeping it real here.
It's not going to get better than that, because that is the perfect description of what it's like. I feel like for most of the country, but especially those of us living in Pennsylvania. I can't tell you how many, I mean, maybe it's like this across the country, but like every couple miles you just see two warring neighbors with yard signs of just like the Kamala people are like, you're in a cult, and the Trump people got all the Trump flags and stuff, and that's like every couple miles at least you see a couple of them. Like, to your
point, my friend has been DMing me because her neighbor, who's a Trump supporter, keeps stealing my friend's Harris signs out of her yard. And it's been happening back and forth. And then the other day, they threw trash in my girlfriend's yard in front of her Harris sign. So it's very, to your point, John, there's palpable anger. And I'm concerned about what's going to happen on election day, the day after the election. Obviously, we've seen what happened on January 6th. I'm very concerned we're heading in that direction again. It's not a good place right now.
I would actually, like, if I were a betting man, which I am, I would bet it's more likely than not we're going to see something near the scale of January 6th in the coming months if Trump loses. If Trump wins, probably not. But if Trump loses, I mean, it's what they're already angling for. Like, you're already seeing it. We're going to get more into it later in the show, but their plan is, hey, if we win, that's great. If we lose, we're not going to lose. Like, that seems to be the plan that they're going for again. And I don't know, like, I don't think that it will work because Trump isn't in the White House anymore, but it could get a hell of a lot more bloody. If it does happen because of that, I don't know. I don't know what's I hope it doesn't. I hope I don't have to cover that. I really don't. I don't look forward to making that content.
Yeah, I read an article from a very reputable news source, but the name of it is escaping me where it was. But they interviewed 3 people that were involved with January 6th, and 2 of them very much regretted being involved, said they were caught up in the cult of Trumpism, said they knew they were in the wrong, but it was all ego, and it was an older woman and an older man. But the third person said, oh no, not only do I fully support Trump taking office again no matter what, but I believe even more that the election was stolen from him. So it was like 2 to 2 and then 1 that was very much still ingrained. So it kind of makes you wonder how many people that were involved that are out on the streets, because some of them, as we know, are now in jail, are recommitting their efforts, and how many of them have said, I basically lost everything, like the one person said, and so I'm hanging up my hat here. So I'll be curious to see where this leads us in terms of the people that were involved the first time as well.
Yeah, when you said that they talked to three people involved on January 6th, my first thought was, well, they're pretty easy to find. A lot of them are in jail. So, tracking them down, not a problem.
And a lot of them
And
are in Pennsylvania, so just hang out here for a while.
and the second thing I thought was I watched this documentary about David Koresh and the Branch Davidian last year or something, and all the people who were involved in that cult, and they talked to a lot of them, and it seemed
I watched
like
this.
you watched it? Like,
Oh yeah,
so
I love
like
cult stuff.
like 9 out of 10 of them were saying
Yeah.
stuff like, "Oh yeah, we still believe it." That was like
Yep.
30 years ago, and they're
Yep.
still all in that David Koresh was Jesus Christ. And I said, "Wow, that is." So I'm actually kind of shocked to hear that at least from that small sample size, 2 out of 3 of
Yeah.
them have changed their, or at least publicly said they changed their ways.
I think when you're talking about that level of commitment, because there was that spiritual component to it, and it becomes so ingrained in somebody's identity, and religion and spirituality is so fundamentally part of the human experience. I do think it is a deeper thing than the fact that Trump is more of a political figurehead, although he's reached, for some people, this cult-like demigod status. I don't think he's replaced their Jesus or their godlike figure. And also in that case, what you were talking about that happened 30 years ago, those people were living on a compound. They were entrenched in it 24/7. I would bet to wager if these Trump MAGA people that are completely engulfed in this, if they were all living together, I think that there would be a stronger connection to them.
Yeah.
Staying more actively involved, which is really what it comes down to. That is why we don't like to have these sort of compounds where people are sort of enveloping these feelings and internalizing them as part of their identity, because this is where it leads.
I agree. All right. So where do we want to start? Do we want to start with the Trump rally, John, or where we want to go
I
here?
do think that it makes the most sense to start with. I was
Yeah,
given
since we were
thought to
talking about
this.
cults.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to start with the Trump rally. So, Natalie, TJ and I talked about it yesterday, and we primarily only had time to focus on the Puerto Rico thing.
Sure.
But I would love to hear your Jess take on the whole thing overall.
Yeah. So I'm sighing deeply because it really
do we want to watch? Do you want to watch a clip of it first, Natalie, to refresh the memory on this stuff, or you want to go into it?
I mean, I don't, but we can,
All right, so I've got kind of a greatest hits montage here of a lot of the stuff. I know, right? So Tony Hinchcliffe, the guy who did the Puerto Rico thing, will be here for the first minute and a half, but yeah, let's just roll this beautiful bean footage and see.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Kamala's gross incompetence disqualifies her from being president. Everyone knows she is a very low IQ individual.
It's going to be pretty hard to look at us and say, you know what? Kamala Harris, she got 85 million votes because she's just so impressive. As the first Samoan, Malaysian, low IQ.
She's a fake, a fraud. She's a pretender. Her and her pimp handlers will destroy our country.
Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails, insane asylums and mental institutions from all around the world.
She is the devil, whoever screamed that out. She is the Antichrist. President Trump, in what he has experienced, knows that Jesus Christ is king.
I don't see no stinking Nazis in here. I don't see no stinking domestic terrorists in here.
Out of character for me to speak at a Nazi rally. I was just in Israel, but I took the gig. She is some sick bastard, that Hillary Clinton, huh? What a sick son of a bitch. The whole fucking party, a bunch of degenerates, lowlives, Jew haters, and lowlives.
You have to tell Kamala Harris that you've done a terrible job. Kamala, you're fired. Get out. Get out.
All right. So, what do you think, Natalie? What do you think after seeing all that?
it made me incredibly sad to rewatch this, because we are not the enemy from within. We are Americans, we are neighbors, we are friends, we are colleagues. When you go to the ER, you don't ask your doctor or your nurse, what's your political affiliation? They take care of everyone the same, right? And I think the divisiveness, to me, was so deep and entrenched in othering, the misogynistic, the xenophobic, the racist rhetoric. I talked to John Legend about this, and I asked him the same question you're asking me. What did you think? And he took us on a nice history lesson around the comparison of this to when the Nazis held a rally in that space in the 30s. And I posted that clip on my LinkedIn, and someone posted that I was the problem for asking such a divisive and dangerous question in comparing what I saw to a Nazi rally. And what I responded was, the only thing divisive and dangerous was the rhetoric being spewed at that hate rally. That is the kind of energy that you bring to the forefront when you want to incite violence against the other. And that speech being used as a pep rally for their side, it wasn't. They didn't talk about policy. They didn't talk about how they wanted to make America great again. All they did was project who Donald Trump is onto Kamala by talking about how she's unfit and unqualified and has a low IQ, when actually all of those things, as we know, are very much true of her opponent. But at the end of the day, what upset me the most was the fact that they did this in a state that they knew, this is a blue state. The reason that they held it there was specifically to showcase the comparisons and the similarities. And when you read a lot about some of the rhetoric, like America is for Americans, I believe that's what the Nazis said in Germany. Germany is for Germans. So we cannot discount this. And I take offense to anybody making fun of this or making it lighthearted and trying to find the humor in it, because this to me was a real turning point for the Republican Party. And I don't think there's any going back for them now.
Agreed. John, what do you think?
So a couple things. First of all, nice job just casually name dropping. I spoke to John Legend there. Just slipping that in there.
Yeah, well, we did bring it up first, to be fair. We did, yeah. I think it's, but I like that. I do enjoy that, yeah.
Second of all, it's, I wouldn't have taken, Hulk Hogan has the least offensive speech at the Trump rally, but it was funny.
It wasn't on my bingo card.
It wasn't on my bingo card, but Hulk Hogan, I was fine with what Hulk Hogan said. It was the rest of them that were the problem. Everything Natalie said there was true. You're comparing it to a Nazi rally thing. It's like, okay. I said yesterday on the show that I saw a tweet that's been living in my head rent free, that conservatives basically are people who don't know how anything works, getting mad at people for knowing how they work. Yeah. And it's like, to anyone who's plugged in at all, who understands the history of fascism in America, the first thing you think of when you think of a political rally at Madison Square Garden is the Nazi political rally at Madison Square Garden. It's the only political rally that I could ever think of at Madison Square Garden. And it would be like a tank manufacturer deciding to unveil their newest product at Tiananmen Square. Like, it's just like the thing that this place is known for is, if you are known for that thing too, I just avoid that area. And it must be an intentional decision to do that. And the only people who would be mad at you for bringing that up are people who, I guess, didn't know that. They're like, oh, you're reaching into the history books for this one. No, like, all of us just know that to be true, and Donald Trump's team does too. Let's not treat this with kids' gloves here. The other thing I wanted to bring... Oh, go ahead, Natalie.
No, please.
No. Please say what you're going to say because I was about to prompt another thing.
Okay. I just wanted to add to your point, just as a woman watching this and listening to the venom being spewed at Kamala, at Hillary Clinton, who's not running. Like what is the obsession with her? Like, leave her, like, move on. Okay. It concerns me because I just did a piece for my social media that's going to come out. It'll probably be up by this time this airs, around how a lot of Republican women are voting in secret for Kamala because they are afraid of their spouses, their male spouse's reaction or their partner's reaction. And when you look and see the violence in the language that is being used by men, all I could start to think of is, what if I was a woman sitting with my husband who I know is a big Trumper, and I know secretly I'm going to vote for Kamala because I'm afraid that my daughter is going to have less rights than a rapist as we continue to move forward? How do I reconcile that when he's laughing at them making fun and saying terrible things about women on this stage? How can I live in that space? And the level of fear, because I actually felt very uncomfortable just watching them talk about the way they talked about women and the disregard that they had and the disrespect that they had. You may not like Kamala's positions, but you cannot discount her intelligence and her qualifications for this role. You may not agree with her politically, but Elon Musk just ran an ad where he called her "see you next Tuesday." His PAC ran this ad and they used the C word throughout it. Like, this is not okay. And the level of patriarchal violence that we're seeing on that stage, the way Tucker Carlson recently talked about giving America a spanking like a 15-year-old hormone-addled girl, that is creepy, disturbing, and it lends itself to taking it from the home and out into the world. And when feminists, when radical feminists talk about dismantling patriarchy, this is exactly what we're talking about. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, I would actually love to circle back to that point and talk about the campaign ad that Kamala released with the women voting against their husbands, because I think that's a whole discussion in itself that I want to get your opinion on. But I want to stay focused on the rally, and then we'll get to that. But that's a really good point you bring up, Natalie. The thing that I wanted to say is we just watched a whole slew of crazy, racist, misogynistic, just fucking boorish comments coming from this rally. But one of them caught fire more than any of the others. And I really don't even think it was the most offensive one that was said. To me, personally, I don't know. You can take your fucking pick. But I thought when Tucker Carlson was like, the Malaysian Samoan low IQ, I was like, in what world is that not just racist? Like what again, what is the point of the joke? Kind of what we said about the Puerto Rico thing, which is like, she's not Malaysian or Samoan, right? Nor would that, like, why would that even factor into why someone wouldn't believe that she would win the presidency of the United States? Why would low IQ, at least I know what you mean by low IQ, but a normal American who isn't versed in right-wing rhetoric wouldn't understand what he means by low IQ. But like Malaysian Samoan, like American Samoa is part of fucking America. Like what would be the thing about that would make you not believe that she was qualified to be president of the United States? Then the low IQ thing, oh my God. Like, it's incredible how fast low IQ has just, started to rhyme with trigger. It's insane. Like, I feel like this happened in a year span. Like, it's just so obvious. If you're on Twitter right now, it's all I fucking see from the right wing is like this low IQ attack, which, what Stephen A. Smith said on Fox News to Sean Hannity when he was like, you can't be telling me that Kamala Harris isn't fucking what would he say?
You said like unable to speak or
unable to speak when Donald Trump is
incoherent
your
speaker.
boy.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, like you can't tell me with a straight face that Mr. Let's put a 20% tariff on all imported goods across the board is some high IQ savant. And Kamala Harris is not. Like, we all know what that means because they can't articulate why they think Kamala Harris is low IQ. I don't love Kamala Harris one way or the other. I don't know how intelligent she is relative to other people. She's never struck me as particularly unintelligent. If you look, I would say Biden is much more apt for that attack because of how often he misspeaks and says dumb things. Kamala doesn't do that very often. Like, what about her is low IQ other than the melanin in her skin?
That's funny. Like, Biden strikes you as lower IQ because I was like, oh yeah, I would.
Right. Like, you want to say which one?
Yeah,
just like you know, you think low IQ attack would go to Biden.
Yeah, like Biden at his best day in the last 100 years, and Harris on her best day, and give them the SAT. I'm going with Harris. I'm going with Harris. Is gonna outscore right that. All right, yeah. So everything you guys said there, second it completely, and I want to go over some of a lot of the things you guys and the fine people that were speaking mentioned in there. First, I want to talk about Hillary Clinton. I think you guys brought up Hillary Clinton and everything and how they seem to be obsessed with her, although she hasn't ran since 2016, hasn't been part of politics or whatever. And I will say that this afternoon, I was struck by some realization that I've given Hillary Clinton a hard time, for as far back as I can remember and everything. But, looking back, she was right about the Russian collusion. She was right about Tulsi Gabbard. And when she said that half of Trump supporters are a basket of deplorables, they've spent the last 9 years proving she was absolutely right. Proving that not a miss in one of those letters of that statement that she said. They just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And with the Trump supporters, I think John, you mentioned how they don't understand how anything works and anything like that. This is something that the three of us, everyone watching, we probably talk about politics more than 90% of the population. For a long time, I did do my best to engage with Trump supporters, to the really loud and open, obnoxious ones, and do it in good faith and just talk to them on exactly what they want and what they're looking for. And without fail, the conclusion I came to is that, they're incredibly stupid. That's what it came to. Like every single time, they were either incredibly stupid or just really bigoted. There was no third category. It was one or both, but it was never neither. Like it was always something like that. And that's who the crowd appealed to. Like we're talking about the fascist rally in 1939 in Madison Square Garden, and it is now. Yeah, I would venture to guess that a good chunk of Trump supporters don't know anything about that because once again, they don't know that much. But the ones that do know exactly what the winking and nod is for. Like they know exactly who this is going for. And Hulk Hogan said that, I don't see any Nazis here, brother. I'm looking around. I don't see any Nazis. And I'm stealing a joke from Triumph, the insult comic dog. But it's true. You can tell these guys aren't actually Nazis because the Nazis were in shape. You at least got to give them that. And so the people there, not America's cream of the crop that you're looking at there. The Nazis took care of their bodies at least. The guy with the crucifix really weirded me out. I don't know who he was, but whenever someone's standing up giving a political speech, holding a cross is bad enough. The crucifix is fucking creepy. The crucifix is terrifying. I've always found that kind of weird. Trump, do we believe this conspiracy theory? Not conspiracy theory, but this idea. Like we all can kind of pinpoint why Trump says what he says. Do we think that Trump keeps talking about Hannibal Lecter because he thinks that claiming asylum is actually insane? I always dismiss that, but he keeps bringing up insane asylum. So I don't know. Maybe that is actually what he's going for. I don't know.
Go ahead. I will say the opening asylums here and reopening the asylums is a thing that conservatives very much want to do. They're like, we should just throw all the homeless people in an asylum. And just I grew up next to a closed down asylum. I learned about how incredibly messed up those places were. Like it's unfathomable to the human conscience now. We shouldn't do that. But I don't think the Hannibal Lecter thing has any rhyme or reason. I genuinely think it's like we're sitting here trying to decipher why.
I know, right? Yeah, I know.
Like,
yeah,
I don't think there's some deeper meaning here, TJ.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. The guy who mentioned Kamala Harris's pimp handler, and this goes to what Natalie was talking about with the just. We talk a lot about the issues that plague the United States, and racism, I think, gets the most ink or whatever. The sexism is much worse. It is much worse. It is as bad as the racism is. The sexism is a lot worse because it's pervasive in every culture that women are just seen as being less than men in every conceivable. Well, except in like. Well, you need to stay home. Like that's where you guys belong. You know, don't try to do what we do outside of the place and everything. But there should be no time in public discourse when it's okay to say that a professional woman who is engaging in politics and running president of the United States and calling people her pimp handlers. You would never do that to a dude. It would never happen at all. And it's just simply meant, like you said, with the see you next Tuesday thing. And John, I wrote down what you said exactly what I wrote down with Tucker Carlson with the Malaysian Samoan thing. I wrote down just racism. That's it. Like it's sort of like what John and I were talking about. The Tony Hinchcliffe thing with Puerto Rico, it started off as kind of like the setup for a joke where he's talking about the giant island of garbage that's in the Pacific or somewhere. He's like, actually, it's just Puerto Rico. Where's the joke there? It's just Puerto Rico are the garbage people on a garbage island. That's the entire thing. With Kamala Harris saying that the Republicans like to do this childish thing where they pretend that they don't know something. Oh, I didn't know her name is pronounced Kamala. It's like Trump is great because if you watch Trump like talking about Harris with his advisors or just like to the side, he always says Kamala. He always says Kamala until he's in public. When he's in public, he always says Kamala because it's just kind of them being children. And what Trump's saying, or Tucker saying, well, you know, she says she's black, but we don't believe her. So what is she? She's Samoan, she Malaysian, she Micronesian, like who knows? They're just throwing it out there. And the low IQ thing, absolutely. And going back to the beginning, what you said, Natalie, I circled down what you wrote that nobody you talk to feels good. It just feels bad all around. Yeah, I feel that too. I feel that pretty much everywhere. And so, yeah, it's just, the juxtaposition in how these two campaigns are closing has actually strengthened my confidence that Harris is going to win because that's the way this is ending and the way this is just showing the stark difference between these two candidates. It could not be more clear.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, and I don't want to segue us to another topic, but I think what we are
on this show, never.
There are so many. This is why we said like we might not get to anything else. There's so many topics.
There's so much to talk about. But oh, I can't. I'm sorry. John is frozen, and I don't know if I'm speaking over him or not.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay. So. To your point, John, you know, and TJ, I do believe that they are getting nervous because we know this kind of rhetoric, it doesn't appeal to anyone new, right? Whether it's stupidity that they're appealing to, whether it's racism or any form of bigotry, right? And I would also add willful ignorance to that. I think there are people that do know better and choose not to do better because they are comfortable in that space. So I would throw them in this mix too. But what I think is really interesting is the fact that Trump is already setting it up in Pennsylvania to talk about the ballots and the fraud before it's even happening. They're talking about things, I think, very intentionally so they can already stoke the flames when votes haven't been, you know, nobody knows anything yet, right? And they're already acting as though they have this understanding that they're going to start sending out these lawsuits at any moment. So I do think he's nervous. In particular, I think he's very nervous about Pennsylvania. And TJ, as an aside, I just want to add something. I think it's very cute that you have a kitty cat on your lap right now as your emotional support animal, because I really think all of us right now need to find something that's going to bring us some level of joy or comfort or levity during the next week or two, because this is going to get really weird and really rough the closer we get to this final tally of the votes. And we are not going to know who won on November 6th. I think Pennsylvania it's going to be a minute before we know anything at all. But the reality is I don't think that the point of their rally, their Nazi rally, whatever you want to call it, in Madison Square Garden was to extend an olive branch to the other side or reach out to independent voters. It was to stoke the flames of racism, xenophobia, and sexism. So when he does lose the popular vote, and I believe that he will, they have their base already fired up and ready to commit acts of violence on Trump's behalf.
It is probably the thing that makes me most confident about Kamala's chances is how much they're already preparing for it.
Yeah. That's
and you know, you can make the argument that they're going to do that either way, just in case to hedge their bets, and that's a fair argument. But like, it has escalated in the past 2 weeks. A lot.
It's not giving off strong, confident energy from Trump.
No.
I got a video.
Alpha male energy.
No. Despite what Byron Donalds tells you, Donald Trump does not give off alpha male energy.
No.
I wrote down bold prediction by Natalie that Kamala will win the popular vote. I wrote that down right there. That I wrote that was pretty funny. But I want to show what Natalie was talking about how Trump is kind of laying the groundwork for "I was robbed" already. And here's a clip right now about what she was talking about. At least I hope I didn't mess this up.
We have breaking news from the Trump campaign involving a lawsuit against Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Let's go back to NBC's Dasha Burns. Dasha, what do we know about this?
All right, so we just received an email from the Trump-Vance campaign saying that they have filed a lawsuit over voter suppression in Pennsylvania. The press release states that this is a direct violation of Pennsylvanians' right to cast their ballot. All voters have a right to stay in line, claiming that Bucks County, Pennsylvania has been turning away voters. Now, we're looking into all of these claims, Jose, but as I said to you earlier, Pennsylvania has been a specific focus for the Trump campaign when it comes to these claims of voter suppression. The former president posting earlier claiming that there's fraud going on, widespread fraud in Pennsylvania, which we have not seen evidence of. And Bucks County in particular, Jose, is a pretty critical county. It's one of the collar counties around Philadelphia, the suburban counties where both the Trump campaign and the Harris campaign really need to run up their numbers. It could be those counties surrounding Philadelphia that could be the tipping point in this election. So the fact that they are focused in on Bucks in particular is significant, Jose.
All right. So if I remember correctly on this, I saw something yesterday where Trump was complaining. He put out 2 posts on Truth Social saying that Pennsylvania officials, or you guys may know this better than I do. I just realized I'm the outsider here, but they were turning away people from the voting lines because they were wearing like Trump gear, like electioneering stuff. Am I right, Natalie?
Yes. And also, you're not allowed to wear anything that has any kind of endorsements for a candidate. That's just a rule.
Yeah, it's always been that way. Yeah.
It's always been that way. That is nothing new. And I believe someone punched one of the poll workers over this as well, because they were angry that they had to either turn their shirt inside out or remove their hat. It's not like they were saying you can't come to vote. It's you're not allowed to wear anything that endorses a candidate. But what's funny, TJ, not funny, haha, but funny like we're in hell together, is I was thinking of yet another incident that I heard about. And this one was from Trump's Truth Social account. And he said, this was, I think, this was the 28th, so just a day or 2 ago. Wow, York County, Pennsylvania received thousands of potentially fraudulent voter registration forms and mail-in ballot applications from a third-party group. This is on top of Lancaster County being caught with 2,600 fake ballots and forms, all written by the same person. Really bad stuff. What is going on in Pennsylvania? And enforcement must do their job immediately. Wow. And what was crazy about that was I posted that to my Instagram account yesterday, and a woman who is a MAGA supporter who likes to frequently DM me with her thoughts, she immediately sent me a link to an article that backed up Trump's claim. And so, of course, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to look this up because I want to make sure I have all the facts. Well, all the article says was that they received an influx of mail-in ballots. That's it. So there was nothing beyond that. So the fact that a lot of mail-in ballots are coming in is enough to be setting off the Trump campaign and the Trump supporters to go into this feeding frenzy and once again repeating this narrative to set it up where we know Pennsylvania is already such a battleground state. So you have this happening, you have what happened in Bucks County. There have been other things going on here. There have been blank ballots that have been sent overseas to military people that I reported on a few weeks ago. They received completely blank ballots when they were supposed to receive full ones, and the State Department said they were fixing that. So like, there's a lot of weird shit happening in Pennsylvania. And I just think we need to be mindful of understanding the rules, following the rules. And if you are in line, stay in line. But if you need to turn your t-shirt inside out, do it so you don't lose your place in line. That's really what we're learning here. And don't punch a poll worker.
You know, TJ, this is just another example of how journalists are so biased against the Biden administration. You heard her admit it. She's a journalist who spoke to another journalist that there was no evidence Trump was telling the truth. Do you believe her? I mean, she clearly isn't low IQ, but it's probably just her pimp handlers talking.
Yeah. Oh God. I just yeah, this is, you know, the thing with this is actually another topic. We won't have time to go into it, but I saw a clip about how conservatives talk about free speech all the time. One of my biggest annoyances that when they talk about free speech, they don't know what it fucking means. They think free speech means you can say anything at any time with zero consequences, which is not what it means. I'm sorry. I wish it was called something else because it gives off the connotation to idiots that it's something that it isn't. But when they talk about free speech, what I've always said is what they really mean is they want to use slurs. That's what they want. They want to have racial or sexist slurs and say it without any consequences whatsoever. But I saw a post the other day that someone's like, it's a lot more than that. It's they want to just lie with impunity, which is what Trump is doing with saying, hey, there's thousands of ballots filled out by the same person. That is a serious charge. If you found thousands of ballots in the exact same handwriting, that is a crime that needs to be investigated and prosecuted immediately. He made it all up. Like not that it matters, as Donald Trump, that is illegal. You can't just do that. That is fire in a crowded theater level of breaking free speech. And they're like, yeah, you should be able to do that with no problem. It's free speech. I can lie. It's like Rudy Giuliani's defense with the election fraud thing. Yeah, I lied, but it's my First Amendment right to be able to lie. It's like, no, not always. I'm sorry. Like we have to have limits on this. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. Like I don't know if there's going to be violence afterward. Like, I mean, they couldn't repeat January 6th. Like, we'd have safeguards. It could be something else, though, that we haven't exactly planned on. But even if it goes smoothly, no matter who wins, well, actually, if Trump wins, it's just going to be a disaster anyway. But if Kamala wins, we still have millions of people, tens of millions, who will go to their graves believing all these conspiracies that Trump has spread. And we're stuck with them for the rest of our lives. And I don't know what we're going to do with these folks. I really don't.
It's not really going to get better. Like
no,
and it's one of those things where you kind of just have to wait, unfortunately, for them to die. Like that's it. Like there's no changing it. There's no putting the fucking genie back in the bottle. We gotta just have faith that the demographic changes will make them less and less relevant. And also, just wanted to note. On this topic, Bucks is in my backyard. Grew up around Bucks County, the Philadelphia suburbs. Like that's where I grew up, right? There's a lot of very legitimate arguments against the Electoral College, but maybe the most significant one is if you lived and grew up where I grew up, and you realized that the people around here are who decide who's president every 4 years, you would jettison the Electoral College into the sun. Like it's the most insane thing. The Philadelphia Eagles fans you see fucking climbing the grease poles, they decide who the president is, not you. I just want to make it very clear.
We have a little bit of that going on here in the Pittsburgh suburbs as well. One of my friends and colleagues that works at Public Source, which is a really great nonpartisan news website for Pittsburgh related news. He just interviewed a bunch of people from the suburbs around the Pittsburgh area. And very similarly, if we understood that these are the people that are going to be deciding the next election and what they were basing their reasoning for their voting on, I think we would all be very concerned, because the reality is, because of the Electoral College, our votes just do not all count the same. And that is hugely problematic when you have this large of a population and so many structural and systemic issues that need addressed. The last thing that we need are people going to the Nazi rallies, internalizing that dialogue and voting in that way.
Yeah, that is really dark and sad. Like, the Electoral College is a group of a few 100,000 racists across 5 states are going to decide the direction of the country, and that's just fair. That's the best system we can come up with.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this election fraud thing some more, if you guys don't mind. We haven't talked about this, John, but I don't know if you guys saw this. This is a video from, who is it, CBS, I think, and it's talking about a group in North Carolina that is very concerned about undocumented immigrants voting, because, of course,
in North Carolina.
Yeah, right. That's because, of course. Oh, that's a good point too. It gets to that as well. Like, the numbers they're dealing with here, because, of course, if you're from, I don't know, Ecuador, and you walk across the Central American deserts, and you come into the United States, evading Border Patrol just so you can, get a job picking strawberries or something, you're really concerned with getting in that federal election, risking your safety and the support for your family so you can vote for Kamala Harris. Like, that makes a whole lot of sense. That for that one vote, you're really going to try. So I'm going to share this video here about this group of American patriots that are saying that they want to stop this influx of illegal aliens voting, and just take a look at what processes they're using. That's going to be my favorite part of this, on what their mechanism they're using to determine this.
Voters from their rolls. But officials say the number of non-citizens who've actually cast votes in federal elections is minuscule. North Carolina identified less than 50 in its most recent audit, although that was in 2016.
So usually this is a total non-issue.
That is 50 too many as far as I'm concerned, Natalie. I don't know about you, but that seems like that's really going to tip the balance in a presidential election.
We don't believe that there's any proof at all whatsoever that this is a widespread issue. It is illegal to vote if you are a non-citizen.
Don't risk your American dream.
The fight to clean up voter rolls and prevent non-citizens from voting is a focus of conservative election integrity groups who are distributing mailers and hosting in-person events.
They are voters that are most likely to be ineligible or illegal.
Jim Womack is leading a team of more than 1,800 volunteers in North Carolina who are combing through voter rolls to identify what they consider suspicious voters.
So here's my question to you guys. What do you think the criteria would be for someone to be a suspicious voter? Like, what would you guess? Well, you know what? Don't answer. We'll just see. I don't know. I take your guess, like, in your mind, but we'll see exactly what they describe as a suspicious voter.
Can't wait.
Trying to come up with county by county lists.
It's a list of suspicious voters. Again, not necessarily illegal or ineligible voters, but people that hit our suspicious list.
CBS News obtained a video of Womack discussing how to identify those suspicious voters. We showed it to him to get his explanation.
If you've got folks that that were registered and they're missing information, and they were registered in the last 90 days before the election, and they've got Hispanic sounding last names, that probably is a suspicious voter.
But why would you single out Hispanic sounding last names?
In that case, I would have to listen to the full context. The Hispanic sounding last names certainly is not exclusive. Anyone who is lacking the required information, we certainly would consider them as a suspicious voter. We are trying to find every illegitimate voter and to challenge the ones that shouldn't be voting.
All right, so
Big thoughts.
Go, take it away, Natalie. Take it away.
Yeah. First of all, my last name would probably end up on one of these.
Absolutely. First on the list.
Just number one. So what I find really interesting about this is the psychological and the philosophical component, because the reality is there was not widespread voter fraud in the past election cycle, and they are desperate to prove that their inaccurate framing of what happened is true, because if not, then everything else they believe falls like a house of cards very quickly. And it would be so embarrassing for their ego to have to deal with the reality that they've been fleeced by a con man known as Donald Trump. Now, that's part one. Part two of this is we need to make voting more accessible because not enough people are voting, right?
Yep.
Voting should be automatic when you turn 18. You should immediately be registered just by the state, just because you are now 18. One of my friends, she is here legally, but she is not a citizen of the United States. She is from South America, and she told me in where she's from, voting is required. Like, you have to vote, and if you don't vote, you get like fined, and it's like problematic. And I said to her, "What are your thoughts on that?" And she said, in the language, it's considered taking the bitter pill, like swallowing the bitter pill. Like, whether or not you like the choices, it is your duty. You swallow the bitter pill, and you pick the person you think is going to do the best that for you right in this moment. And I find it all very interesting because I think in this country, we have played down the value and the importance of voting so much that we have allowed for this kind of situation to breed, because it's almost like we're realizing too late, God, they don't want us to vote, because when we vote, we win, and we win important things, and we get things done. And when we have those supermajorities, we could do something big like universal health care, paid family leave, codify Roe v. Wade into federal law, like all of it, right? And so now they're terrified that we've kind of figured this out. And so they're doing everything to prove the point that there's all this fraud so that they can stand there and say they were right all along, when we all know how very wrong and how very embarrassing this all is for them.
It's interesting because you brought up the automatic voter registration thing. Mm-hmm. And that's something I also believe that we should definitely do, because why the fuck not?
Why not?
But something I always say to conservatives when they're like, hey, we want to make sure that these elections are secure, that no one's voting who shouldn't be, let's implement a voter ID law. And I'm like, I will agree to that if and only if we automatically register everyone in this country to vote at the age of 18, make it an opt-out system, and send them a free in-the-mail voter identification card whenever they request it. And Republicans don't want that. No. And that is, if they proposed that bill, it would pass in a fucking heartbeat. But they won't, because that's not the point. The point is the voter suppression in their mind. And even if I were to take them seriously, right? In my mind, I would, if someone casts a vote illegally, that is equal and opposite to someone not casting a vote because of a voter security law. To me, that is equal and opposite. Those two cancel each other out. But in their mind, they think it's worse to cast a vote illegally than it is to stop someone from voting legally. And like, that is just such a backed up, fucked up way of thinking to me. It's crazy.
Well, let's be real too. 2 out of 3 of the people sitting here right now were not included in voting when this country was founded, right? TJ and I, we were not involved in that conversation. Oh, we didn't get that chance to vote. And so the system, if you want to call it that, is kind of working how it was designed, in the sense that 2 out of 3 of us, they don't really want to hear from us, because our views on things, our take on our vantage point might be a little different than the people in power that looked like your ancestors, John, in that very real sense. And so I think we also aren't accounting for the reality of the deeply racist and sexist policies around voting laws, and how that suppression has led us to the point where if your name looks a certain way, we're going to flag you as suspicious.
Yeah, I know. My favorite part of that clip was exactly that part, Nelly, where they asked them, like, so these are your words, and you're saying,
I need more context. I
Yes,
need more
he's like,
context for what I said.
Yeah, it's like if anyone would know, it'd be you. You seem to be speaking you never stuttered one time. You
No
seem to have a
stutter
an
detected.
absolute goal in mind here. What did you mean by that? Oh, I'd have to check to see what I said, because we all know what you said. Like, yeah, we don't trust Hispanic sounding names. And now that's such a great point, talking about how they need this fiction to be fact. That there's like, remember that Trump was elected the first time? He won. He won the election, and still he spent like 6 months saying 3 million illegal immigrants voted, and that's why I lost the popular vote. It didn't even matter. It didn't matter at all. He won, and everyone acknowledged it, but he still wanted to push this idea that actually I won the popular vote too, and there was no evidence for it at all. They had these stories about buses full of people voting, never materialized anything, and they've been trying their best to prove this, and it never. 50 cases of possible people who were voting that weren't citizens in the entire state, millions of votes, and they had like 18 volunteers taking time out of their day for free to check to see if these folks are there, and there's nothing there at all. And John, what you mentioned, listen, I've said the same thing, the exact same thing about voting. If you're really concerned about voter fraud, like if you genuinely are, if you really think it's an issue, John's solution would solve everything. Oh, John and Natalie mentioned it first with the voter registration, that it's absurd that you have to take an extra step to vote, that if you're a citizen and you're 18 years old, you have to go down to the county and say, yes, I would like to vote, please, and fill out some paperwork shit. No, the government knows who you are, where you live, where you were born. They know your social security number. They know when you turn 18. Every day, thousands or whatever, millions of people turn 18. Boom, those people automatically registered to vote. There shouldn't be an extra step involved, and they can send you the card, and it'll be free. And that way, then when Republicans would say, oh, well, you're saying that you can't get an ID, in that case, you would have an argument. Yeah, if it's a free ID, you can get at any moment. If you lose it, go down to the courthouse. They'll give you one that day, and you can vote. If it's the day of if it's an actual election day, head over there. They'll print one out for you 24/7. I mean, at least during election season, there's no problem. But John, what you were saying and why they hate this, because if you talk to Republicans about this, they will straight up tell you, yeah, voting should be hard. They say that. They do. Yeah, they will absolutely say, yeah, voting should be difficult. It should be inconvenient. It should be hard. We should keep it on a Tuesday during a cold weather month. We should not make it a national holiday. We should make voting like and I always say, it's like, because they'll always downplay it, because John brings this up all the time with his favorite example about systemic discrimination, and how the neighborhoods that where you stay a really long time to vote, you're standing out in line, are suspiciously dark-skinned a lot of times in the country, and the affluent white neighborhoods, you never have people standing in line for hours to vote. It's always easy and convenient. And they'll say, oh, well, so what? If you're not willing to stand in line 4 hours to choose the future of your country, how much do you love the nation?
And you can't give them water either.
You can't, yeah, exactly, yeah. But if you make them take off their MAGA hat, that is a violation of your rights as an American citizen. You should be able to wear whatever you want while you're in line. And it's like, okay, listen, if you were driving to work, and on the 4 or 5 mile trip you had to work or whatever, there was a pothole every mile, just a massive pothole. You knew where they were. You could navigate them. You could get around it. But why should you have to? Why? Right. Just fill the potholes. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And yeah, I just, like, there's people who believe that the citizenry should actually, that our power does derive from the just consent of the governed, and those who say no, it doesn't. The just consent of the governed is fuck that. We want our fascist dictatorship, and we want it right now.
Yeah. And that's a wonderful segue, TJ. Mm-hmm. One topic I'm pretty good at about how, the conservatives, they don't actually care about ideological consistency.
They don't.
That's not a thing.
They do not care about like rules applying equally to everyone. They just care about what advances the interests of my in-group is good and what doesn't is bad. And we have had such a wonderful example of that we mentioned the Puerto Rico being garbage earlier, but did you guys see the old senile man we have in the Oval Office, what he said about Republicans today?
Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
I'm going to show you this monstrous monstrously insulting diatribe that our current Führer went on about the Republicans of this country.
Community. He's failed businessman. He only cares about the billionaire friends he has and accumulating wealth for those at the top. And he says immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. Give me a break. He wants to do away with the birthright citizenship. Who the hell has said that in the last 100 years? And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done, everything we've been.
So
Okay, Biden.
yeah, so
like
I actually think there's like several interesting parts of this, but Republicans are livid. Like JD Vance is out there like, how
A bunch of little snowflakes. They need to toughen up, Buttercup. Give me a break. They're out here calling.
Okay, there we go.
Kamala,
I'm sorry. Somebody just started playing. I got like
Phoenix
applause in my headphones right there. And I was like, wait, is that where is this coming from? So here's the thing. No fucking Republican heard that and is offended. Not
Nope.
a single goddamn one.
No.
And it's only relevant to them because they've been getting shit on for the garbage statements by the comedian. They're like, oh well, he did it too, therefore it's okay. And there's just so many levels to this. A, you don't fucking care. You don't care if he calls you garbage. Fucking Donald Trump has literally said he would take the military to deport me specifically from this country. I don't want to fucking hear it. You don't get to throw stones in this glass house, even if he meant what you thought he did there, which I honestly don't know. He might have meant Trump supporters. He might have meant that what he's now saying that he meant that fucking Tony Hinchcliffe is garbage, which I think we should all agree is an accurate statement. But either way, like it is also symbolic of how Democrats are also in a tough position, because I do agree that as president of the United States, Joe Biden shouldn't call Trump supporters garbage. I think it's unbecoming of his station. I think that he should say that he represents all of America, and constantly he has their back. However, if you're fighting fascists, it's kind of hard to say they aren't garbage. And it's a really weird rock and a hard place that at least Kamala and Joe Biden are stuck in. I can sit here and say, yeah, if you're voting for Trump, I think you're garbage. I think you're supporting a fascist. I think you're a terrible cancer on this country. Might you still be a decent person worthy of all the same equal rights that everyone else in America has? Yes, of course. But I do think it's a garbage fucking thing to do. Joe Biden can't say that, but it creates this weird juxtaposition where Natalie was cheering him on there. Because we want to hear him say that. No, it's totally okay, because that is the reasonable thing for one to do when talking about fascists. But Biden can't say it because he's also their elected representative. It's just a very interesting dichotomy we have going on.
I think if you read some of the more radical feminist philosophy on this idea of decorum and polite.
Natalie, you lost our entire Republican audience right there.
All four of them. Sorry, guys. Well, tough shit. We're gonna have a little lesson here then. No, if you study like the great works of a lot of radical feminists, in particular Black and brown feminists, they talk a lot about this idea of politeness and decorum around politics and political speak, and who is allowed to be polite and who's supposed to be polite. But we've moved beyond Democrat and Republican. I believe we're in a very different place, and there is no place in my mind to be polite with somebody who does not think that I deserve the same rights over my body as a corpse, right? So for me, the decorum went out the window when a lot of these laws were actually starting to be put in place that were actually creating a situation where I no longer now have the same rights as I did 2 years ago, and that my niece and my sister and my friends and their daughters and their children do not have the same rights. So fuck your politeness around politics and your decorum around it. We are fighting for literally the soul of a nation right now. And I'm not being dramatic. I really think it's at that level. And I get really frustrated. I've done a few shows, not with you guys, but there have been a few shows that I've done where they've said to me, I think you're being dramatic around JD Vance's rhetoric, or Donald Trump's really not that bad. No, they really are that bad. They're actually worse than what I'm saying and what I'm speaking to. And they're not just coming for, obviously, women. They're coming for Black and brown people. They're coming for the working class. They're literally trying to turn this into a white Christian nationalist nation. And we have to wake up. And I was actually really glad to see Biden finally find a backbone and call it out, because as the leader of this nation, there should be no room for this in our political discourse. And so when we're talking about all of these things, why is it that Democrats always have to take the high road? Why is it when they go low, we go high? I think we should be mirroring it back to them and giving it back to them, because like I said, they fall like a house of cards the minute you pull it out. And the only way I have ever found to defeat a bully is to show your teeth. And so that's what I think we need to be doing to these people.
Natalie, I could not agree more. I have grown quite weary of this asymmetrical warfare that it's expected from us, because we're like they go low, we go high. Fuck that. I'm tired of it. I'm done. I did a video a while ago, and I was making fun of Elon Musk with his goofy little jumps, like in the shape of an X, like he does all the time. And I had some guy comment, it's like, oh, so we're making fun of autistic people now? I was like, yeah, you can go to hell. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I was like, I told him, I was like, what I said is like, I'm not that kind of liberal. That shit doesn't work on me. Like, I will absolutely like go in the mud and just use the same warfare that you're using. I'm not going to be limiting myself by these, they love to throw out, oh, is this so much for the tolerant left? No, buddy, this is the intolerant left. All right. I'm intolerant of a billion different things, and fascist, racist, sexist, homophobic, misogynistic rhetoric, that is on the list. I have no quarter for this shit. I mean, this is like, because think of how absurd it is. Because this is treating like these disagreements like they're sports teams. Yeah. That, oh, you like the Niners and I like the Cowboys, and so I'm not going to call you a piece of shit. I mean, that doesn't seem fair. This is not what we're talking about. These are people's lives on the line here, and it's especially rich coming from conservatives. Like John said, they don't actually care about it. They're just trying to find a way to cry bully. They want you see. They say fuck your feelings. Their feelings, on the other hand, are very delicate. They need to be pampered. Oh yeah, absolutely. Their feelings need to be protected at all costs. Off the top of my head, when we brought this up, I wrote down all the things I could think of. Oh, before I get there, do you remember the Dark Brandon speech where Joe Biden had like the red shit in the background and everything, and he's doing his
that I thought was very weird, TJ. I thought that was quite weird that he chose like the
very strange
vendetta background.
It
was very weird.
That was odd.
One of his interns definitely thought that would be so cool and go viral. That's what that was.
It did go viral. It did. And but one thing he said was, I don't know if you guys remember this, where he mentioned how the MAGA Republicans, which once again, I fucking hate that he specifies MAGA Republicans. It's all the Republicans now. Sorry. There's 98% of them. You don't need to specify. But he said that they were semi-fascist. Republicans spent like 3 months complaining that Biden called them semi-fascist. Like the most tepid, light criticism he could probably come up with. But I was just thinking out the top of my head, examples you could find that from Donald Trump just launching into the extensive polemic. It's saying a lot to call anything Trump says a polemic. That's kind of that word is a little strong, but I don't know, rage or whatever, or like whatever step below. He's called Democrats and liberals and progressives scum, demons, communists in the bad way, because there's nothing wrong with being a communist, but to them they're and Marxists, fascists. He's called them because of the enemy, horrible people.
Right there. He has also called us Marxist, communist, fascist.
Yes,
all
I
in the
know.
same-
Yeah,
That's a real interesting.
That's my favorite.
yeah, fascist commies, like because that's a thing.
thing.
Degenerates and pedophiles. This is something that I stress this so much. One of the primary reasons I have no patience when someone says, "Well, aren't you being kind of mean to the Republicans?" They have been calling us a danger to children as far as I can remember, because we have the wild idea that trans people, including trans children, are worthy of love, care, and respect rather than suspicion and ridicule. Like that's it. That's their standard right there, spreading this vicious lie that we're saying, yeah, 9-year-olds should get their genitals removed. Something nobody supports. Nobody, but they say it. Trump, how many times has Trump said this? You send little Jimmy off to school and they do a transgender surgery on him at the school with no parental consent. The least true thing spoken in this entire political campaign, and he just gets away with it. So no, like I said, fuck you. I'm tired of trying to pretend I got to be nice to you folks when I get nothing. I don't get it in return.
And the thing is, as you said, asymmetry
is
the very important part here, because the thing is, we care about being ideologically consistent. When I go low, it's not that I'm making shit up. That's not what, when TJ says, we need to go low too, that's not what we mean. We're not lying about bullshit. But yeah, we'll just say to your face, we think this is fascism. And we will explain to you specifically why we think it is fascism. We will give you historical context. We'll talk about the ideology of a fascist. We will talk about hierarchical versus non-hierarchical worldviews. But when they say, oh, we're not fascist, they can't back it up because they don't even fucking understand what fascism is, because they think that they're capable of being both a communist and a fascist, as if those aren't two sides of completely different ends of a political spectrum. And so it's very I do disagree. Like, I genuinely don't think Biden should say that. Like, I don't think that the president of the country should be insulting members of his own country. But I do think that he should be calling Donald Trump a fascist, and the implication that those who support him can be left unsaid. But I do also agree he stopped doing that. Like, after that rally that you're talking, I don't know, a political speech, it wasn't a rally. It was in Philadelphia. They were testing it out, and he did it at the State of the Union too, and then he stopped. And they stopped with the fascist terminology until quite recently. And they stopped with the whole, like, oh, MAGA Republicans thing. They're the fascists, not the normal Republicans. They kind of stopped all that. And I do agree with Natalie that you need like a pit bull out there to go fight the other pit bulls. It doesn't mean they have to lie. It doesn't mean they have to make shit up. It doesn't mean they have to be insulting for the sake of being insulting. But we shouldn't back away from the implicit thing is, if we think Donald Trump is a fascist and we're going to stand on that business, if you're voting for him, I think you might be misguided. I think you might not understand fascism. I think you might not understand what you're doing. I'm willing to give you all the benefits of the doubt that there is, but at the end of the day, I think you're voting for a fascist. If that makes you feel bad, explain to me why you're not, because you can't. Because if you could, you wouldn't be voting for him.
I think we're giving these people too much leeway. They know what they're doing. I think we need to accept that. I'm over this, John. I really am. I'm sorry. You've had almost a decade now of seeing who this man is and the kinds of things he's done, the people he's aligned himself with, how all of those people have subsequently gotten into trouble, lost their livelihoods, ended up in jail, ended up blacklisted. I mean, let's be real. They are, like I said, there is willful ignorance here. They choose to align themselves with this man because they want this. And I think the sooner that we understand what we are dealing with, the sooner we can confront it in a meaningful way where we can fight it and know what we're fighting. And I think the reality is we've been in a real social war, and only some of us have been aware of it on the left. And I think a lot of the left is waking up to recognizing that we've been in this war for a long time. But the truth of it is, regardless if Trump wins or not come November, this is not over. This to me is unfortunately the beginning of another level. And so, I've been, go ahead, TJ.
No, please.
No, I was just listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger today, and he was talking about how he's going to vote for Kamala because we need to close this chapter. We need to turn this page. It's like, dude, we need to burn this book. Like, I don't think that turning a page is a thing that we can do at this point. And I have always considered myself as somebody that can really move in many social circles, can talk to people no matter what their background or who they are and find common ground. And I'm having a harder and harder time doing that because there are just certain lines I will not cross, and accepting someone's homophobia, transphobia, bigotry of all kind, racism, misogyny, just so I can say, well, I'm a better person. That's not a thing that I'm doing at this point. I think we need to let go of that.
Yeah, that's where I am too, Natalie. I just, this is how I see it, that if you're a Trump supporter, that you've had, this isn't 2015 or 2016. Right. He hasn't snuck up on you. You know what you're getting this time. You knew what you were getting in 2020. And that I think if you're a Trump supporter now, you are a lost fucking cause. Like there's nothing, and I don't respect you. Well, I respect you as a human being. I'll put it that far. Like you deserve the same rights and privileges as every other American citizen. But that is where it ends. Your ideas and your political beliefs, they are not exempt from criticism. I will absolutely go for that. And so if you see Donald Trump on stage, which I know you have, and you see him up there saying that people like me are pedophiles, that Mexican immigrants are murderers, thieves, rapists, and I assume some of them are good people. When you see Donald Trump on stage in Minnesota leading a chant about Ilhan Omar, an American citizen who in any sane reality would be a fucking hero. Like a woman who made it out of war-torn Somalia, becomes a citizen of the United States and rises all the way to Congress. Like there should be a statue to her somewhere, but she is reviled because she's a black Muslim woman. That is it. That is the only fucking reason that she is reviled by millions of people across the country, like nationally despised. And seeing him on stage leading a chant saying, send her back, and you're fine, you're still voting with him, I don't owe you an ounce of fucking respect, and you will not get it. You won't get it. I will let you know that I think you're a garbage person because you're fine with voting for garbage people. I don't know. I'm done with it. I'm done. I have no patience whatsoever. And I wanted to bring it to Arnold Schwarzenegger too. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I saw that thing that he posted, and when I saw that, I thought, my first thought is that I can't wait to hear Donald Trump mention this. I know he's going to. He's going to. He's going to be like, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, never liked him, horrible actor, Commando, Predator, wildly overrated. The Terminator films were great in spite of Arnold, not because. I just can't wait. That's just the only weapon he has in his arsenal is like, this guy is a dog shit actor. He was a terrible governor. I got to check Truth Social, see if he's mentioned it, but I know he's not going to let me down. That's the one thing I can count on Trump for, just a ridiculous dragging for no good reason.
Can I just add? Go ahead.
No, please add.
I just wanted to add too. I think part of the reason I feel the way that I do these days is since being on KDKA radio as a female progressive voice in a sea of very conservative voices, I have been hit with the most disgusting comments on X, on Threads. I mean, things I'm not easily shocked. And some of the things that I've been seeing that are directed at me, I'm like, that's a low, like you can't believe. So for me, I'm just over playing nice when the things that I'm talking about benefit these people too. And they can't stand to look past, the idea that a progressive younger woman is saying it to them. That is so upsetting to them that they'll say really vile things about me, about my identity and my, just my appearance, anything to try to diminish and demean the things that I'm saying that, of course, in turn would benefit them. And so that's just where I'm at personally. Working in radio has been a real game changer for me.
So I'm going to disagree with the two of you philosophically. But first I'm going to say I want so badly to agree with you. I want so bad. So many times throughout every single day nowadays, I'm like, fuck these people. I hate these people. I want to fucking beat the shit out of them. It sucks.
Yeah.
But I do have to constantly remind myself, and again, this is more just like the way I see the world. If I'm going to sit here and tell people that we need, as a society, to recognize how systemic racism could cause a disproportionate amount of young Black men to go out and commit violent crimes or end up in prison or do genuinely bad things as a result of the society in which we live, the systems that are placed around them, I think we also have to extend that to Trump supporters, people who were born and raised in rural bumfuck Indiana, who've only lived around white people their entire lives through no fault of their own, who are indoctrinated into, basically a religious cult. Are you going to tell me that them voting for Trump is any more their fault than an inner city kid who was never had food at home at night, stealing from the local fucking gas station?
I think these are false equivalencies. Because we all have access to books and we all have access to the internet and we all have access to knowledge. I understand what you're saying. I have compassion for everybody in their circumstance and what they've been exposed to. But the reality is, John, everybody has the opportunity to learn. And whether that is just going online and Googling what is systemic racism, because I heard it on X, Y, and Z podcast, that is something that is available to them. And if they don't have internet, they can go to a local library. Like, I have a hard time equating, someone who was brought up in a certain environment to someone who is an adult who has access to knowledge and is choosing, once again, is willfully ignorant because it stokes the flames of their own hateful rhetoric. And the reality is, I know a lot of people who grew up in backwater communities. My mother grew up in a very rural community in the Midwest, and she is one of the most progressive, compassionate, cool as hell people you could ever meet. So I don't want to equate one to the other. I think the reality is they need to educate themselves, and it's not my job or your job or TJ's job to do that. But if you hear something enough times, maybe you should just put on your thinking cap for a second and say, I keep hearing about this. Maybe I'll just look at it. So that's kind of where it ends for me.
Yeah, and I agree with that on a personal level. We have no responsibility to do that for them. That's all available for them to learn. My thing is just Joe Biden, as president of the United States, whoever the president of the United States is, does have a responsibility to everyone in America to help guide them along to the right path.
Fascists more. Because I think they need,
I'm okay with calling them fascists.
They need to sit with that. Why are we coddling this white fragility? Because that's what this is. And they need to sit with that and understand that if they want to play in the mud with the pig that is Donald Trump, they're going to get dirty too. And it should come from the top down, because if we want to say that we are a nation for all, fascism ain't it. Authoritarianism ain't it. And if we don't squash it, we are so screwed.
Yeah. So I do understand what you're saying, John, because one thing that I do try to point out a lot is what you said is true, that it is kind of, it's an oddly conservative way to look at this, that not examining the system that created people like this. This is something like I'll see when people talk about like with feminist discourse, like if you have like a 13-year-old boy and he's saying something that, he doesn't feel like he's being addressed, or he thinks the system isn't working in his favor, I'll see was like, well, who created that system? Well, not him. Okay. All right. He was born into this just like you were. All right. He didn't set up the patriarchy. And So we do have to recognize that. That's true. However, like you said, that's on a personal level. On a grand level, like looking at this nationwide, you know, when you hear someone up there saying, this group of people is the problem. I'm going to ban Muslim immigrants. Black people are eating our fucking pets. There's nothing you're raised with that keeps you that way. That's just like you're just fine with the bigotry, and you need to call out that bigotry and let them know that this isn't okay. And listen, there was a video game, God of War. I don't know if you play God of War 2 or Ragnarok, John, but
I'm in the middle of playing Ragnarok.
Okay, so there's a scene. Natalie, I don't know if you played it either, but John and I talk about video games all the time. So there's a scene in which Loki is talking. Loki goes to talk to Odin, and Odin is yelling at Thor, just dressing him down, just giving him the third degree. And Loki walks up, and Thor kind of slumps away after Odin's been yelling at him. And Loki says, "Oh, so are you mad at Thor?" And Odin says, "No, what were you talking about?" It's like, well, you were just yelling at him. Like, why were you doing this? Like, oh no, I'm not mad at him. That's just the only language he understands. That's where we are right now. Okay, that's how I see it. Is that we can dress like, because you can't say we haven't tried. You cannot say we haven't fucking tried. Like right. In 2016, I extended an undue amount of grace to a lot of Trump supporters and say, listen, I understand the economic problems. I understand like the worry about the future. I understand that the world is changing. I understand you weren't a big fan of Hillary Clinton. Tried our fucking best. And what do we have to show for it? Like, I mean, like a lot of people did leave. Granted, a lot of people did. But that's what I'm saying, that specifically with Trump, the ones who stuck around, there are people that can be saved. Not most of them. And the ones who can be saved are worth saving. I'm totally in favor of that. I just think that number is vanishingly small. That these days, if you're still on board with this, you're on board with it. It's not because you don't know. It's not because you don't know. You have been told, you just don't fucking care. If you're still out there saying, well, there's only two genders, we've been going over this like 5-6 years now. You know exactly the difference between sex and gender. You just don't fucking care. You know about systemic racism. You just don't fucking care. You know that, the anti-Semitism and the anti-Muslim, the Islamophobia. You know about it. You just don't fucking care. That's what I'm saying. I'm fine with a broad stroke on this because generally it is true. In specific, it may not be, but generally it is. And I guess maybe Biden shouldn't have said garbage. But I'm not going to lose a fucking second of sleep over it. I'm not. I'm just not.
And John,
I'm not either. And
I feel bad. I didn't mean to get so hot.
No,
I did.
That was not directed at you, my darling. It was just at the ether. That was not at you. I love you.
Oh no, did John freeze?
He's
I do think I froze a little bit. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I have absolutely no malice towards you for saying that. I didn't think it was directed towards me. And I do recognize that of the three of us, I have the least amount of danger from these types of people, threatening me. I don't get
wasn't going to mention it, but there you go.
No, I mean, it is true. But I do think I guess just it's one of those heart of hearts beliefs.
Yeah, I hear you.
That I don't believe 50% of America understands what Trump is and chooses it willingly. I understand that they fucking should, and it pisses me off that they don't. In my heart of hearts, I struggle to believe that many people are just literally knowingly fascist.
Does it matter? Does it matter? That's how I said it doesn't matter. Because let's say it was the Civil War, and it's like, oh, I just don't believe all these Confederates really want. I mean, does it fucking matter? It doesn't. I mean, they like the ends are what actually matter. How they got there, all right, we can figure that out later, but we got to solve the problem right now.
So yeah, I'm solving the problem, fucking sure. But my personal view of their morality and them as a person, I still feel like I should, until proven otherwise, right? Like there's a certain point where it's like, oh, you understand what's going on here.
Yeah, I fail
guess
to see.
what is the
Yeah.
point? Because for me, it's like there have been so many red flags, but I mean, the fact that like women are bleeding out in Texas because they can't get they're literally dying, John.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at that point where it's like we are now seeing literal death, mass death, because of this rhetoric that led to him being in power, that led to the Supreme Court being able to gut the EPA. They've been able to gut the Voting Rights Act, which we know disenfranchises Black and brown people and working class people the most. And they've been able to destroy reproductive rights and bodily autonomy. I mean, for me, like, we crossed that line when the Supreme Court was allowed to go crazy and do whatever the hell they want because Trump was placed in power. And so to give them any concessions right now feels just really dangerous, because if Trump gets back into the White House, I don't know if journalists will be allowed to exist in a year from now. One of my close colleagues, I sit on the board of Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, and they're literally talking about what will happen if Trump gets back in office. There will be this thing that could get triggered, and we're talking about this from a legal perspective, that could be retroacted 5 years back, that could send the CEOs of Planned Parenthood to jail for racketeering. Like, that's where they're trying to take us, putting political prisoners in jail. I mean, I am so over it. I'm just so over it. And so for me, I hear what you're saying. I don't want to live in a world either where Biden or any president calls people, my fellow Americans, a negative name like garbage. But what I think Biden was trying to get at, and maybe didn't articulate it as well as he could have, is that this behavior is garbage. This way of being is garbage. You as a human being are not garbage, but you cannot continue to exist in a way where you behave with such garbage intention that is actually killing people. And that's just where I sit with it.
This is also like, there are, especially, since I knew a guy who told me, he was in the Army with me, and we were talking, and he was a white guy, and he mentioned that someone that he knew in the Army invited him to join this white supremacist group called Identity Europa. And he was saying, which I had never heard of at the time, but as that was years and years, this is like during Trump's term and everything. And as time has gone on, the proliferation of white supremacist content, which not even like crypto white supremacists, they're very open about the fact that they're white supremacists. They want, non-white people expatriated from the United States. And like, if you're in conservative circles, you have heard this. You don't have to look very hard. If I fucking seen it, you definitely have. And so knowing that there are folks out there who is like, it's unambiguous and they're open about it, I have zero problem. Calling them names is not anywhere near on my list of concerns. And there's people who have seen it, and it's not like, whatever. I really want more tax cuts for rich people, so I'm gonna overlook that. I don't really care if you're personally bad or evil, or if I'm even capable of making that judgment. I can't. Like, I don't know, in your heart of hearts, I'm not really racist in my heart. I don't fucking care. Like your actions are, I guess that's the way I put it. Your actions are deplorable. Your actions are garbage. Like, the actions that you are taking part in are actively damaging and killing people. Your feelings, your fifis, I just they're a second tertiary concern. That's how I see it.
So I think the reason that I separate action from process, and if you're like, process, these guys, might not be in whatever. If you're saying fuck these guys on like a process level, that's where you lose me, because you asked me what's the point? What's the point if half of America really is that far gone? Because like at that point, it's like, shit, fuck, the tankies might be right. And to me, like, it has to be that only a small fraction truly understand, and a vast majority are being manipulated. Because if it's the other way around, well, fuck. I think JD Vance like tweeted this, or it was Ben Shapiro or JD Vance, and they were like, so if you actually believe Trump is Hitler, would you be okay with assassinating him? And it's like, Well, yeah, like that's the only logically consistent belief. So if I'm believing that half of this country truly understands the fascism and is going along with it and choosing it, well, that's a problem.
The point to me is that I am not going to fucking pretend that these are rational people with whom I have slight ideological disagreements. I'm going to say that these are dangerous people that need to be defeated. I think it's very important to put that context out there because
at the ballot box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like they need to lose. I am not going to say what because if we do that, if we say, well, let's just talk about this like it's a fucking thought experiment or something, we end up with what things like what Biden has said, what Pelosi has said, what Kamala Harris recently says, that what we need is a strong Republican Party again. No, the fuck we don't. We don't need that because that's where to me that's where that leads. If it's like, well, let's not go too far in the rhetoric here, and I'm not calling for political violence of any sort. I'm not calling for anything like that. It's just that I'm just saying that we need to stop pretending that this. Sorry, fucking stop, Wolfie. But we need to stop pretending that this is like Wolfie's getting excited about this shit too. Is that we need to just literally like decimate them at every election possible. The Republican Party. I say this without a hint of hyperbole. The Republican Party is the most dangerous institution on planet Earth for human fucking survival. Not just in the micro when it talks about specific issues for specifically minorities in the United States, like Natalie mentioned. I saw that story about that lady in Texas who died because she had a baby or she had a fetus she was carrying that was gonna be a miscarriage. They knew it, but they couldn't perform an abortion because the fetus was alive. And so they had to wait. I forgot how long, but they had to wait. And by the time the fetus actually died, she went to sepsis and she died too. People are doing this right now. So that has to go. But that's on the small scale. On the larger scale, just how with climate change, how they pretend it's not real. It's going to get millions of people killed. I don't need to pretend that this is just like some small philosophical disagreement. The Republican Party needs to I got gosh my language here. The Republican Party doesn't need to be an active political force in the United States. It's not doing anyone any good. Sorry about my cat.
I love the cat. The cat's name is Wolfie. That's amazing. Yeah, and I think to try to segue off this, because one, I'm tired of beating up on John, and two, there's other things I think we should discuss.
First Republicans, then John. That's good.
I know. God love John. God love John. No, but in all honesty, what I find really interesting, to your point, John, is if we're talking about process, then let's talk about the people who are outwardly claiming to vote for Trump, Republican women, and who are perhaps going to secretly vote for Harris. Now, maybe those are the people we can save, right? Because I think what else is going on that side of the aisle is not only the intimidation tactics, the threats, and the political violence that we're seeing already with lighting ballot boxes on fire and punching poll workers and all of this, but that patriarchal violence that's also happening in the home, whether it's verbal, physical, sexual, financial, whatever the way it is expressing itself. And I think that is a new conversation that we did not have the first time around. In fact, I think it was the opposite, where there were a lot of white women who were pretending like they were going to vote for Hillary and then were voting for Trump. I think we're now seeing that in reverse. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that Roe v. Wade fell. And I think we would be remiss not to bring that up as a major turning point for a lot of women, whether they're conservative or liberal or progressive or whatever they identify as. Because the truth of it is, all kinds of birthing people and women have abortions for all kinds of reasons. And so when we're talking about the people we can save, I think at the end of the day, if we bring attention to the issues that impact all the people, and I think reproductive rights is one of them, because men certainly have benefited from abortion throughout history, and also don't want to see their partners die because they end up going septic due to a miscarriage. I think that's an issue worth talking about. And also the reality of your vote is private, but if you're married to someone that you can't speak to about your political feelings, what are you doing? And to me, those could be people that perhaps could be talked off this fascist ledge, so to speak.
You know, Natalie, I love having you on the show for many reasons. Don't get me wrong, but probably like my favorite thing about having you on the show is that you're a damn professional. You brought that up earlier. I said, let's put a pin in it. And then just as like the conversation was dying down, we needed to segue. Boom. You were ready to segue straight to the next topic I was intending to bring up. Just absolutely professional, Natalie. No. I'm glad you did it. I just want to call out how awesome you are for it. Because I want to talk about that because it has been a little bit of an interesting debate today. Did you see the ads that I referred to earlier? So I'm going to play this for the audience in case they haven't seen it. But I'll just play it. Hold up.
Natalie B, professional. We do love it. We love to see it, folks. We love it.
Your turn, honey.
In the one place in America where women still have a right to choose, you can vote any way you want. And no one will ever know.
Did you make the right choice?
Sure did, honey.
Remember, what happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Waltz. Vote Common Good is responsible for the contents of this ad.
All right. So obviously this is a topic that, is very, personal to women specifically. And so I want to get your guys' reactions. So TJ, we'll go to you first.
Very good. Okay, Natalie. So Natalie, all right. That was a 4D chess move there by John. So all right, there are a few running gags we have on the show, and one of my personal favorites when we have a black guest on is to go into that exact thing where I'll bring up this issue is very important to black people, and then just throw it to John. And so, fantastic, John, 5 points for that. So listen, well, this is kind of weird.
It kind of sucks, doesn't it, TJ?
It does. Very uncomfortable. Yeah. So all right, Natalie, I think I saw you do a video on this commercial, I thought. And I don't know, maybe I have an out of place opinion here, but I don't know, the commercial, I get it, but it does kind of bother me because I hate the fact, I hate the fact that women have to hide who they're voting for their shithead husbands or something. And listen, I understand that there are lots of complicated reasons why someone can be in a marriage and they're stuck and they just can't get out, and I get that. However, if you have a boyfriend, if you have a fucking boyfriend who's leave that dude, get the fuck out of there. Just take out. But I understand you're married, you got kids, you got a house, and they got a lot. All right, you might be stuck with this guy. I understand, but Jesus Christ, if you don't have to be with, because I don't know. Once again, it's like. Speaking as a guy, I have a lot more leeway and freedom and privilege in this, and my safety isn't going to be a risk. But living with someone who I knew didn't give a fuck about my rights would just, I don't know how. So, of course, if you are in that situation, you have my sympathies, and if you have to hide it and vote for Harris, I'm fully support it, glad to have it. I just do feel very bad for the women who actually are in that situation.
Yeah, I have to tell you guys, I did do a video about this today, and I literally ended it with, as an aside, if you have to hide your vote, maybe it's time to vote your husband out, it's time to go by. But I have to tell you, when I first listened to, and I love that Julia Roberts did the voiceover because I think she was the right demographic and the right tone for this particular core group of women that they were trying to hit. And it was extremely obvious who they're trying to hit with this narrative. But I have to tell you, my heart got caught in my throat when there's that one moment where she says, "A place where you still have choice," in the voting booth, and that it really struck me. I mean, just to give you guys, I'll just be vulnerable for a second. When Roe fell, I became physically ill. I threw up several times that day. I went to bed. I was grinding my teeth, I guess, so hard in my sleep. I ended up with TMJ that lasted for months. It really fucked me up, not because of my own concerns around abortion rights, because I'm a white woman, middle class, whatever. I can get an abortion if I needed one. I just kept thinking about all the fallout from this and what this could look like for generations of people coming up behind me. And so for me, it really resonated with me, the severity and the danger of not just where this was in that moment 2 years ago, but where we were going to end up, which is exactly where we all on the left warned everybody. They're going to come for birth control. They're going to come for IVF. And we know they're doing that. They're going to come for marriage equality. They're going to come for the transgender kids. Like, they're doing all the things related to sex and sexuality, because at the end of the day, this is about controlling the means of production, because this is about capitalism. And so I think we need to understand the end goal here with all of that. And when I watched this ad, I first thought, this is incredibly sad that we're here in this moment. But then I thought this was very clever to do this and release it so close to the election, because I think, to John's point, there are some people teetering on that edge that maybe aren't fully committed, let's say, to this fascist way of being, that still have some idea of maybe this isn't the way forward, but who aren't able to express that fully, and reminding everybody that your vote is your vote and no one needs to know who you vote for in that moment. But please get out and vote is really the message here. But at the end of the day, what really breaks my heart is the fact that it takes white women to this level in order to get them on board with realizing, because I think they all thought, I'm going to choose security over freedom the first time around. And now their freedom is gone. And it took that sort of, oh, now it's impacting me energy. And I'm really tired of that. Like, whether or not something impacts you personally, you should be able to look at the world around you. And if we always start to center and uplift the most vulnerable among us, we all win. And so I hope that we can start to recalibrate and recognize that we sink or swim together. But I guess better late than pregnant in this case.
I had like the same, thoughts that the first DJ had of like, yeah, I understand. Like, if you're in a marriage, you have kids, you have a house, whatever, it's a lot more difficult. A lot of people are stuck in those situations. But if you're fucking like just dating someone, just fucking leave them. Like, it does blow my mind, this discourse of like, oh, you should be able. No, you should. I can't imagine dating someone. If we disagreed on what the marginal tax rate should be, cool, we can have those political disagreements. But we disagree on like fucking Trump. Like, we as DJ said, we've been here for enough time that like you had the opportunity. And I'm not going to fucking date you if that is how you feel. But I also thought that this ad sucked. And it wasn't. I wasn't the target audience, and I understand that. But I was like, if I was the target audience, I would find that incredibly patronizing. Like, just the way the ad was made with as much subtlety and tact as a fucking Cialis commercial. Like, it felt, the music, the stock music choice they did, the like shitty actors. I was just like, if you're gonna make this, and as you said, like this very serious point, and this honestly quite dark point, it just felt so off-putting to me the way the message was delivered. And maybe that's my film major marketing brain thinking too much into it. But like that's what the discourse has been on Twitter today, of like the conservatives like, oh, this is patronizing towards women, or at least some of them. And then I thought the one masterful gambit of this is I've seen many, many, many tweets being like, oh no, my wife is definitely going to vote the way I tell her to. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that was intentional earned media, but like there's been so many of those I've seen, and I'm like, oh wow, oh fuck. That's okay. Well, maybe this needed to be that fucking blunt and patronizing.
I think it was making fun of like the guy that, to me, they were making fun of MAGA men in that.
So
moment.
okay,
like,
so
he looked like a dolt, and I think that was the point.
that's
was
my problem
poking
with it.
fun
Like,
at your husband, and I think a lot of women like that.
but see, Natalie, I want to get very specific about this. In my mind, maybe I'm wrong about this, but the kind of woman who's making fun of their stupid Trump supporting husband doesn't need to be goaded to go to the polls to vote for Kamala Harris. The kind of woman who's like inside joke, haha, my husband's a fucking jackass and I'm stuck with him. That woman's already made up her mind, and I feel like the target audience is women.
I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that.
Again, maybe I'm wrong about that because to me the target audience of this message is women who are like afraid, like they've been voting with their husband, they have drank the Kool-Aid and they're seeing the cracks in the foundation and realizing they might be wrong. And to me, when someone's in that position, they're precariously on the edge. If you give them the idea of, we think your husband, who you do love, and you just feel like there's this unfortunate divide between you and you don't quite know how to reconcile it, your husband's an idiot who looks like this, I feel like that would push that woman away. And again, I'm just putting myself in that woman's shoes, and that's how I would feel if I read that. But again, I
don't know if I agree. I don't know if I agree. I think it hit it where it needed to. Go ahead, TJ.
I think, John, like the way you described it, that it was, hacky and shitty and over the top and ham-fisted. That's 90% of every political commercial I've ever seen. Like,
I could have a whole fucking episode on how I can make better political ads.
It's pretty. That's a garden variety political commercial. If you ask me, they all kind of look the same way.
They're not ridiculous.
Yeah, they're not. And like, you're right. Not only are you not the target audience for the commercial in specific, but you're not the target audience for political commercials at all. I mean, like, the stuff that works on. Oh God! All right, I'm gonna dial down the ivory tower, looking down and shit and everything like that. But it's just like the people like. You ever hear the conversation, the phrase that the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter? It's like the shit that works on these folks. I can't imagine. That's like 9-year-old TG be like, "Are you kidding me? Really?" But look, that shit works. It works.
Yeah. Well, here's how I looked at it. Julia Roberts was a huge star in the 90s and the 2000s. It was the rom-com star. It's comfortable. This reminded me of a Hallmark style filming, right? This resonates. And on top of it, it was comforting. Like the women look at each other and they kind of go, I see you, you see me. Shh, this is our secret. It creates a sisterhood of white women looking at white women, which is kind of what it needed to be, because there's a lot of memes going around right now, and one of them is like Glenda the Good Witch because it's Halloween, right? and it says white women. Are you a good witch or a bad witch, right?
That's good. That's good.
Because that's where we're at right now, where there's a lot of looking at each other, and I think something like this. I hear what you're saying. It's silly, it's kooky, it's cheesy, but women like that. We like to feel safe. We like to feel like our big bad wolf is something we can make fun of and laugh at, and it's okay. And so I think putting it into a different context, you're talking about a demographic of women that are now mothers and maybe grandmothers too. And so perhaps, they're not going to leave their husbands. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. That's not really the point. It's like, girl, we know your husband's kind of an idiot. It's okay. My husband's kind of an idiot too. You don't have to vote like him. I won't tell. To me, that was what I took away from it. And I'm not the target audience either, right?
Yeah.
So I do think if you put it in the context of the cheesy Hallmark movie with Julia Roberts voicing it over, that was so smart. So smart. I do think it will be somewhat effective to the target it needed to hit.
I wanted to say something you mentioned there. I hadn't seen that commercial about the Wizard of Oz thing. I did find it funny that they're a witch either way. That does make me laugh. I don't know.
That's subtly very like that. That would work for me.
See, John, like the cynicism of that part, and
it still wouldn't work with the target audience, but it's funny to me.
Right? Yes, I know. That's. It actually is hard to do this because you can only see life through your eyes. You have no choice but to do so.
Yeah.
And so, one thing that. This is a rare occurrence, but I was absolutely wrong about something when I was making fun of Chuck Schumer when he said that the Democrat strategy was to abandon working class people and try to attract people in the suburbs. I thought that was stupid. Turns out it worked like a charm. Turns out like that won Democrats the election 2020 will probably win them in 2024. I hate to see it because I think abandoning working class people is a bad fucking idea. But you know, like that's the strategy they went with. I think it only works in the short term. I think that's the problem. That only works in the short term. But John, I wrote this down. I forgot to mention that you know, arguing over whether or not you're going to support Trump is not the same as if you disagree about arguing over like what the top marginal tax rate is. And the good news is that if you're dating a Republican, they won't know what a top marginal tax rate is. Like they're like, oh, low taxes, that sounds good, but they still think that if you make enough money to move to a higher tax bracket, you lose money. I don't know how many times you guys have had this conversation, probably 1,000 times. They don't know how tax brackets work, but that's just something that's pretty bad. Go ahead, Natalie.
No, I just wanted to bring up John Legend again because
Like when you went like this, I was literally thinking, oh, who she's gonna name drop now? She got Beyonce coming on.
No, I just have to say this because I asked him, speaking about tax brackets, I said, you're a wealthy American. Why aren't you voting your pocketbook in this election? Because that's always the Republican, code is, well, I'm voting for Trump because of taxes. And he just said, look, I'm going to do fine either way. He's like, I don't have a problem paying taxes, what I have a problem with is X, Y, Z. And then he went on to rattle off all of these other things. I just wanted to bring that.
No, of course you did. Like, I like that Natalie name drops that she's like, oh, I got this famous, guest on my show, John Legend. Hey, our most famous guest on the show is Natalie, and so it's just kind of funny that now I wrote that joke down. I wrote that joke down 2 minutes into the show, and I forgot all about it. And I was like, oh shit, am I gonna get able to tell this joke? And I'm so glad you brought up John
You're
Legend.
welcome.
It came up perfectly. Yes, because
You're welcome.
if I'd have said the joke now, it wouldn't have made it done any good. But oh my God, Natalie just saved my ass there. That's fantastic. And another thing I wanted to say, bring us together, is that it is weird. So I pulled up this chart here. I mean, you guys have definitely seen it, and the folks watching have seen that. In 2024. Look, dudes do not rock well right now when it comes to this election. It's just kind of sad. But one thing I noticed that you know how there's always the silent Trump voters from 2020, that there might be a lot of silent Harris voters too in 2024. People who just aren't admitting that they're voting for Harris. That could go out in our favor. But that is a stark gap. I guess I should check it against previous ones. But I don't know if the gender gap has ever been this wide in an election. And so like dead even, like honestly, the same numbers going forward with that. But it's strange that guys, it's not strange at all. Guys are like what a 9-year-old imagines. Trump is like what a 9-year-old imagines a real man is, like a rich guy who's a fucking bully. Like that's as far as it goes. But it is strange to see. I saw a guy post this meme of Donald Trump at a construction site, and he was wearing, his regular gear and and the guy wrote in the caption, "Look at that. Donald Trump is wearing a baseball cap and work boots. That's my president right there." As if Donald Trump has done an honest day's work in his life. But that's all it takes to fool people sometimes. That's it. That's all it fucking takes. And Natalie, you said something that we mentioned all the times that, I may not have a lot of respect for the thought processes and the actions of the bigots that support Trump. But you know what? They deserve universal health care too. They do. Yeah. Like that's like the major difference between the two of us, that our side, we want them to have like all the privileges and all the rights and like a happy, successful life that we want Americans. What they want is a nation of mostly white people doing backbreaking labor for minimum wage with no health care. Like that's their idea of a successful United States. And so when people say that, oh, we want the same things, just turn past. No, we don't. We don't want the same things. Like they want a world that's just worse for everyone involved.
So I'm going to name drop again.
Oh, here we go.
Because I want to go back to the gender thing a little bit.
Speaking with the Pope.
I was interviewing Kerry Washington.
Oh, of course. Oh my God.
And I found this really interesting because when Hillary ran, we talked a lot about gender, right? She's going to break the glass ceiling. She's going to be the very first woman president. we've not heard Kamala talk about her identity very much at all, except when she's absolutely been put against a wall and forced to address it due to some disgusting remark. So I asked Kerry Washington, what do you think as a Black woman, to potentially see the first, woman of color and woman win the presidency? And I thought her answer was really interesting because she also downplayed it. That, Kamala Harris will be a president for all Americans, no matter who you are. She said, of course, she's a multitasker. She kind of made a joke because she's all of these identities rolled into one. But I found it really sad in a way that we aren't allowed to celebrate this moment as women and, of course, as people of color, because the rhetoric on the right has become so venomous, and they are so about this DEI life, which we all know is just code language at this point for what they're not allowed to say, that we can't even take a moment to acknowledge the history that could be made in this next week. And that also, and I understand, why Kerry said what she said, because I think she wanted to redirect the conversation and talk about Kamala being a president for all. Back to John's point, right? She's not going to be just a president for a certain group of people. But it also just made me a little sad that we're not even allowed to really acknowledge the history that could be made right now.
History, that was good.
That is good. It's her shirt. The one thing I would say to that, I really do hope that she's waiting to spike the football.
Oh, no, yes, that's funny. Yeah, that would be funny. That would be funny.
I agree with you. Like, it is sad, but also I actually do fundamentally feel like, if I'm watching I think it's a great example. The Eagles played the Giants. Saquon Barkley is the former running back of the Giants. There's a whole hullabaloo over the offseason. He's on the Eagles now. And the whole week leading up to the game, people are trying, reporters are like, yo, you got anything to say to the Giants who, didn't sign you? They didn't want to pay you? And he's like, no, just another game, just another Sunday. And then when they won and he ran for 170 yards, he was like, yeah, man, I took it kind of personally. And that's what I'm hoping the case is here. She's just like, I don't want to give him bulletin board material. I'm just playing it straight faced. This is, I don't think about me being the first woman president at all. Never even crossed my mind. You're bringing it up now. Didn't even know.
You're bringing it up for the first time. I didn't know.
I really hope in her victory speech, she's like, and by the way, just
in case you were wondering,
the crowd goes wild. I'm looking forward to that moment if it does.
Yes,
live in the good timeline.
Yeah, John and I bring this up all the time, Natalie, what you just said, that I remember when Obama ran for president, I was watching like a hawk to see if he would talk about, if you elect me, I'll be the first Black president. Never said it. Not one time did he ever, to my memory, and people correct me if I'm wrong, I were watching all the time and he never mentioned it because he didn't need to say it. Everyone already knew, you didn't. And plus then, because if he did, he'd be making the election even more about himself, which is not what you want to do. And that's what Clinton fucked up. Because all the time, Clinton was always talking about how she would be the first woman president, and is like, oh, okay, so this is a vanity project. And Harris learned, like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that. And it is. I'm glad to hear that Kerry Washington said that, because I haven't said this publicly because I feel kind of bad saying it, but I am really glad that Kamala Harris checks so many first boxes. Like, I'm really glad that we have the first woman president, the first woman president who was also a vice president, first Black woman president, first Asian woman president. Just so many are just off the list. Just bam, we cleared them because that comes up a lot, and it does. It gives people so much ammo, and it should be just something for Americans. I agree completely. All right.
That is a good time.
This is about time.
To wrap this up.
Real quick, Fori, I wanted to point out a comment I saw here. And when I was talking and I was getting mad about the Republicans and everything, and I said Wolfie was making a whole bunch of noise, I saw someone comment that Wolfie is ready is always ready to take extra legal direct action. Yeah, Comrade Wolfie, he's ready to punch a fascist whenever he needs to. We appreciate your sacrifice, Wolfie.
All right, so we will close it out now. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming and watching this show. You made it to the end. Even if you are a Republican who we shit down your throat this whole time because the algorithm loves to send our videos to you, thank you for making it this far. I'm sure you won't like it, but maybe subscribe and hate watch a couple more of our videos. And if you want to hate watch some of Natalie's content, Natalie, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can go to TikTok and Instagram at Natalie Bencivenga. You can go to my website, www.nataliebencivenga.com. And I also host radio on kdkaradio.com every Saturday from 2 to 5. And you can check out some interviews there as well. And these two pop up every now and then. So hopefully they'll be both on very soon. So you can check me out there. And also penncapitalstar.com. I have a series called Facts Over Fear.
Thank you so much, Natalie. Folks, we really appreciate you guys joining me, John, and Wolfie for yet another show. And, we look forward to the next time Natalie interviews a famous black musician or actor and decides to come on the show and gloat about it. So next time, hop on and we'll see what we can do. Catch you guys later.